What's going on, everybody? I'm here to do a review for John Wick Chapter 4, the fourth installment in the ongoing John Wick series. Let me tell you something right now. I have been a fan of this series since the first one. I've seen all of them. I don't think I started watching them in the theaters until around the third one, but I wish I could go back in time and watch the first and second one in the theater to get that theatrical experience. And let me tell you something right here, right now. This movie already is ranked in my top 5 movies of 2023, and we still have so many more movies that we have to go through for the rest of the year. It's only March. We're still in the first quarter, but this one is right up there. The trailers for this movie did not do it justice, but the trailers conveyed its message to make me want to go and see it when I first saw the trailer last year. So John Wick Chapter 4 is pretty much picking up where John Wick Chapter 3 left off. You know, in the last one, if you saw it, he was badly injured and pretty much in a situation where he probably should have died. But, you know, they ended up recovering his body and, you know, they ended up taking him in and he ended up being recovered. He was in recovery and now he has to get back into the swing of things. And basically, the time that we haven't seen from the end of the third one to the beginning of the fourth one was just him. He's fully recovered and he's getting back into the swing of things. This movie is basically about him wanting his freedom from the table. The table, in case y'all didn't know, is basically this crime organization where it's basically a lot of assassins and they want to kill John Wick at all costs. I mean, this man stays on that board, at the top of that board, for a payment of no less than $20 million every single time, because this guy is almost impossible to kill. He practically is. The guy's like a one-man wrecking crew. Think Rambo outside of the jungle and in a suit. That's John Wick times 10. And it's just, you know, it's just crazy where you see how the franchise of this movie started to where it is now. Because what did they say? The budget was budgeting, and you can definitely tell that this was money well spent, because this movie took place mainly in Paris. You know, the first 3 really took place in the States. There was some other inserts of different places, more so in the third one when the budget was really big, got even more expansive. But this one, they were mainly like 90% of the time of the movie, they were really in Paris. So really, John Wick, all he's trying to do, he's trying to get his freedom from the table. But the thing is, when it comes to the table, the only way you really can get your freedom is if you get killed. That's really the only way you're getting out of the table. But John Wick, he's fighting his way to get from under the table, so to speak. That's what they kind of really relay it as. When it comes to the John Wick movies, there's really only 2 boxes that need to be checked off for me when it comes to how good this movie is, or maybe how bad it is. Luckily, both of my boxes were checked, and I'm talking about checked a few times. That is the story good? Is it a very good story? Is it not something they just threw in there? Because the one thing about action movies, stories can get lost in that, because everyone is used to seeing, you know, guns firing, knives being thrown, stabs, people getting cut, people being blown up, cars and everything. The story can get lost in that. That's probably why I stopped watching the Fast and Furious movies, because for me, the story got kind of lost and got lost in the action. With this one, the story is still there, and I love that it's a continuity thing. So when you look at the first John Wick and the second one, the third one, and the fourth one, the story continues. It's not like they came out with John Wick Chapter 1, then Chapter 2 was a separate story, then 3 was a separate story, and then the fourth one is a whole different story, to the point where you have the same people, but it's just a whole different storyline. So I like that it's a continuity thing going forward, so it's like a flowing story, almost like a saga, and that's really how it's supposed to be. So the story was checked off for me. The other box, of course, was the action. Listen, this is a John Wick movie. You already know what you're going to get from that. You're going to get guns firing, people getting stabbed, people getting cut, things getting blown up, things getting cut off, things getting bitten off. Everything that everything that I'm saying right now, you're going to get in this movie. Like, I don't know what the budget was for this movie, but they went all the way in, and you can tell that they really, really did. And you can tell that the cast and crew had a lot of fun with shooting this movie. One of my favorite sequences in this movie was I'm gonna say it was a driving sequence. I'm gonna just leave it right there because I don't want to spoil it for anybody who wants to go watch this movie and hasn't seen it yet. but it's a driving sequence. I'm gonna just leave it right there. That sequence right there was crazy, and it was one shot that they did in this movie that reminded me of a video game, and I could not believe they pulled that off. But it was amazing how they did that shot. The cinematography in this movie was phenomenal. I don't know, like some of the camera angles, I could not believe they were able to capture stuff in the way that they did. I'm just stop myself. I feel like I'm about to get too excited and spoil something for somebody or somebody's who wants to go and watch this movie. In this movie, you know, we had some introduction, we had some new characters. We got this one guy who went by the name of Mr. Nobody. He was literally like probably one of the 2 black people in this movie. And he was in some of the trailers, but we didn't really know too much about what his character was. We just assumed, like, I guess we didn't know if he was a bad guy or a good guy. But he was the only person in this movie with a dog. And I think that's probably the best thing, because with John Wick, they said, we tired of giving you dog after dog, because every time we give you a dog, the dog ends up dead. Anyone who knows from John Wick chapter 1 and chapter 2 that this guy is not good with dogs or keeping a dog alive. As a matter of fact, the killing of a dog is what kicked all of this off. If you go back to chapter 1, that's what really kicked all of this off. So I thought it was dope that they brought this character, and he was a pretty dope character. They also brought in the villain who went by the name of the Marquis, which is the person who's like the head of the table, played by Bill Skarsgård. If y'all not familiar with Bill Skarsgård, I know you're familiar with It chapter 1 and 2, the reboot, the more recent one. He's the one that played Pennywise. I'm telling you right now, this guy was born to play villains, because he killed it as Pennywise in It chapter 1 and chapter 2, and he killed it as a villain in this movie as well. To the point where when I was looking at his facial expressions, I said, I feel like I'm looking at Pennywise right now, just without the makeup and without him doing the weird, creepy voice or the weird movements. But he had an accent in this movie too, but he is a really, really good actor. As a matter of fact, I think he comes from a pretty well-known acting family. If you look up the Skarsgårds, you'll probably know who I'm talking about. And of course, they had to bring in, or they had Donnie Yen in this movie. Listen, Donnie Yen is one of the most talented martial artists. I think he does martial arts right now. Like, you know how we had growing up Jackie Chan, you had Jet Li. Back in the day, our parents had Bruce Lee. This generation has Donnie Yen, and Donnie Yen killed it as a blind assassin. It's crazy. This man was killing it literally as a blind assassin, shooting everything, using his cane as a sword and all types of stuff like that. And I'm gonna be honest, he has some good comedic timing, you know, for him to be the type of actor that he is. Because a lot of the comedy that did come from the movie, and it wasn't a lot of comedy, let me just put it right there. A lot of the comedic stuff that came in this movie came from his character, and it wasn't that forceful type of funny. It was like it flowed to the point where if you were just having a casual conversation with someone and they just let a joke rip off, and that's just kind of how his character was. And by the way, his character name was Kane in the movie, for those of you who wanted to know. But all in all, I really can't say too much more about this movie without going into spoilers, and I really don't want to do it. But let me just say, John Wick Chapter 4 is probably in my top 5 already best top movies of 2023, and we're only in March. We still got April through December to go, so many more films to cipher through, but I think this one has already locked its spot in for me as far as I'm concerned, as far as ranking movies and from what I've seen so far this year and what is to come. Keanu Reeves, he's done it yet again, and I think that's the big testament to him, is because he took, like, this was his brainchild. John Wick is his franchise. He started it with a very small budget, and to see where it has grown, not only in story wise, but in budget, that is simply amazing. Also, they brought back Lawrence Fishburne. Lawrence Fishburne, if I had to compare him to another character, he's kind of like his Lucius Fox to Bruce Wayne. You know, Lucius Fox was basically the person, the tech guy for Bruce Wayne, whereas Lawrence Fishburne's character, he is more like that to him, where he creates the suits and the weapons and all types of stuff. And speaking of the suits, I thought that is so dope that they made them suits into Kevlar, because I was wondering why in the trailer I kept seeing them go like this and pulling it up above their head. So basically it's almost like a bulletproof suit That's why in this movie, you're seeing that John Wick is able to take a lot of hits the way that he is. But I'll be honest with you, with them hits and them impacts, you would think it still looks very painful. And you'll see what I mean when you see the movie. But I thought it was dope that they turned their suits into basically Kevlar material that basically is impermeable. I can't even get the words together. It's resistant against bullets and very heavy, intense hits. And you'll see what I mean should you actually watch the film. But all in all, this was a very good film. I really, really enjoyed it. I would probably actually go see it again. Also, for some people, a con might be because of the runtime. This movie is about 3 hours long, but with everything that goes on and because of the way that the story flows, it pretty much goes in a way of you don't realize that 3 hours has passed. That's why I say the story has to be good, because with a runtime that long on a movie, if the story isn't good, it can have a lot of dead space, and then it can be boring at points. When I tell you this movie is far from boring and it has like no dead space at all, even with the story, even when there's downtime and there's nothing going on like action wise, you're really going to appreciate it for sure. But let me know what y'all think down in the comments. This is a movie that you will go check out. Have you seen the other John Wick films? Let me know down in the comments. Which is your favorite John Wick movie? If besides the fourth one, because it just came out, let me know. Is it part 1? Is it part 2? Or is it part 3? I'll talk to you all in the next one.